Hello and welcome to this episode of Rockford on the Record. I'm your host, Wally Haas, and today I'm with Sarah Leys, who is the Housing and Program Manager for the City of Rockford. First of all, Sarah, congratulations. You just got a national appointment. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I was appointed to a committee for the National League of Cities. So it's an organization that represents municipalities across the nation. So I'll be on a committee working with peers to talk about the federal dollars that our communities get and how it's spent and what we feel we need, where there's gaps, where we could see better resources. So I'm excited.
So when you get that kind of appointment, that must mean you're doing some pretty good work in the city of Rockford. Tell us a little bit about your division in the city and how it works.
Sure. So I work in the neighborhood development department here, which is in community and economic development. And the programs that we run focus on home ownership. So what we do to support that is we have a down payment assistance program. And then right now we're processing files and applications we've received for exterior rehab, for home repair and accessibility modifications, and then we have a new program called the Expanded Rehab Assistance Program. So that's all helping homeowners catch their properties back up. We also work to address blight. We work with our construction services to help make sure demos are happening when they need to be. And then our department runs the Mow to Own program. So if the city owns an empty lot next to you and you are interested in having that lot, we can work out an agreement where if you take care of it for 2 years, you can take over ownership. So we're doing a lot in the neighborhoods to just help stabilize and give resources to our residents. The other thing we do is help increase units in the city. So right now we have funding on 2 different large multifamily projects, one being Longwood Plaza Apartments, and then our next one we're about to close is Lafayette Apartments. We're helping to rehab those 2 older properties and make sure they're ready for people in Rockford.
So how does a resident qualify for one of your programs?
So most often we are working with dollars that require that we're serving low to moderate income households. So we're looking at our official definition is 80% of the area median income. That's hard to know, and it's a very specific number that HUD determines, so we always publish that on our website. And our city website's been recently updated, so if you go to departments, Community and Economic Development Department, you'll see neighborhood development, and our resources are all right there. But we'd be looking to help people in that income group with whatever their next housing need is.
Okay, so you mentioned down payment assistance, and there's also a rehab assistance program as well?
Yes, we have open applications from time to time. When we have an open application, it generally stays open 2 to 4 weeks, depending on funding and that. We announce that through city social media or through press releases. The other thing someone could do is if they went to the city website and went to neighborhood development, there's a link there to sign up for notices and for our newsletter. And so someone would know when we're opening an application and who it's going to be focused on and how they'd apply.
What are the more popular programs?
Definitely the rehab.
The rehab. Okay.
Absolutely the rehab. With down payment, we're always working with different banks that already have down payment assistance. So sometimes a bank's program is actually better for people. So we keep something available because we would like to make sure first-time home buyers especially have that opportunity to be in our neighborhoods in Rockford. But the rehab programs, there's a lot of demand. To give you an idea, our exterior rehab program application was open in August for 4 weeks, and we had 400 applications for what probably end up being about 40 actual projects done. So a lot of people need help.
So, rehabbing a house is not cheap.
No.
So how does the city pay for these programs?
Sure. So we have 2 main funding sources, the largest being our federal entitlement dollars from HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development Department. So those are allocations. There's a formula that Congress does and determines how much Rockford would qualify for, and every year we get notice. And there's two different funding sources that we use for our department. One's called the Community Development Block Grant, and then the other one's called the Home Investment Partnership Fund. So we get an allocation that's usually around $3 million per year. And we use that to look at what's the next priority housing need in the city or neighborhood need, and what program should we do next.
Okay, so how are those priorities set? How do you determine what you wind up paying for?
Sure, very good question. Thank you for asking. We have to submit to HUD a 5-year consolidated plan. So that's an extensive process of gathering data, but also of holding focus groups, public hearings, collecting whatever input we can from residents to hear about what it's like to live in Rockford and what they most want to see. So we have right now a 5-year plan that is year 2020 through 2024, which means this year we're redoing that plan. So we're right now about to begin the process of holding hearings, holding focus groups, talking to neighborhood associations, really anyone that wants to set up a group and talk with me, I will show up and we'll talk about what they would like to see prioritized.
Okay, so you mentioned talk with you. So, I'm on the fence. I have some projects I want to get done at the house. I probably qualify income-wise, but I'm not sure. Can I just call you up and ask you?
Sure. So our general phone number is 779-348-7162, and there's a number of people in my department that can help you with that. Rhea will answer the phone most likely, but the rest of us will all help you, and we do public events too, so you'll see Barb or Jocelyn or Lucia or other of us too. But what we'll do is walk through with you what the funding looks like. We end up helping to manage that project for you. We don't just hand you cash, so we'll walk you through all the different steps, what it takes, paperwork, what time frame you should expect, and then it usually ends up being a 3 to 5 year loan on your property. That's forgivable, and you do not have to pay on it as long as you stay in your property. So we just explain all of that and what it means for you, the work you want done, and what it would look like, and make sure you're comfortable with that.
You also mentioned the Mow to Own program. What are the qualifications and the limitations on that program?
So you have to be an adjacent property owner to one of the lots that the city owns, or a nonprofit that can tell us how you're going to use it. We have a few that some nonprofits took over to use for community gardens. But if you are adjacent to it, then you would say, hey, I'm interested in this property. We have an application, so we just verify that you are next to it. And then you would mow it and remove snow from the sidewalk for the next 2 years. As long as you do that, it's transferred to you at no cost.
All right, so what about the residents who don't qualify for the program? How does this program benefit the average Rockford resident who's never going to need city help for any of this?
So going back to the homeowner rehab, and for our full set of programs, essentially, why should
I care?
Why should I care,
Right.
right? Well, when we were looking at property that we own and we think about where we live and how we feel about where we live, a lot of times in the discussion ends up talking about equity, right? Mm-hmm. So when I own a home and I think about property values and are they rising, what am I going to get back out of this home when I sell it? Is it still a good investment for me to keep it up? And I think about it individually. And when a question's posed like, why should I care? We're probably really in that discussion, which is a good financial tool, good thing to be planning, good thing to be thinking about. The reality is your individual equity also really depends on community equity.
Right.
Like, you're not going to see a rise in your own value if community assets aren't addressed. You're not going to see a rise in your individual equity if whole neighborhoods aren't watched and cared for, and we don't make sure that all of our resources are equally divided so that neighborhoods stay in the shape that they are or revive to what they were when they were started. And Rockford is a small city. It's a great city, right? But we are all connected. So if we ignore other neighborhoods and we don't think about how that's affecting our community equity, eventually you will be affected in your individual. I think, I'd like to think that all of us want to help our neighbor and we want to be involved person to person and we care about each other. There is also just this real dollar and cents practicality of if you would like to see recovery and continued growth in your personal wealth, which is tied to your housing equity, you need community equity to rise at the same time. Otherwise, over time, we will stop moving forward.
So the bottom line is, if my neighbor's property is worth more, mine will probably be worth more.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great summation.
What's the favorite part of your job?
My favorite part. So I really enjoy the community conversations that I get to have when I sit with a group like I'm talking about, and I go to a focus group and I get to say, so I'm here to listen to you. I'd love to start with, what do you love about your neighborhood? And there's so many different things happening throughout Rockford. There's so many different things that people feel pride in. And I think a lot of times we focus so much on the work that needs to be done yet. And I'm up for it, and that's my job, I get that. But I love going to those conversations and hearing, how proud Rockford really is of itself. We forget to talk about that, and that's just the best part of what I do.
Very good. It's transformational, right?
Yes, it is.
Right, very good.
What a great word.
Yes, I use it a lot.
Oh, I bet.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I think that's it for this episode of Rockford on the Record. Thank you for watching.